Translator Ninetales, Editor Dark Gem. At the edge of the forest, Blind's face turned grave. He leaned on his cane to catch his breath while Butcher brandished his blades. Around them lay a layered space that shifted in an uncanny fashion. This space was stacked in layers, and whenever it changed, the sights within would change with it. At times it became a vast woodland, at times a scorching desert, at times it became waves that surged up to the heavens, and at times it became stars from outer space hurtling straight at their faces. With each shift, a different restricted law would erupt. When the might of the divine restrictions hidden within this space stirred, Butcher would have to meet them head-on in collision. Butcher roared in anger. "Blind, Granny, my waist is about to snap. Are you two done resting yet?" Blind let out a sigh. "I'm old, and my bones aren't what they used to be. Let me rest a little longer." "I ain't much younger than you," Butcher snapped. "Besides, my lower body was only just reattached. It's not that sturdy. If I keep fighting, my upper and lower halves will split apart for you to watch." Blind said unhurriedly, "Granny is still young. Let her take over." From Granny Sai's mouth came an aged voice, sneering. "Though I'm strong enough, my wife's body can't bear it anymore. Wife, let me take over your body." "Scram!" Granny Sai cursed furiously. Butcher and Blind both looked strange. Granny C's illness was worsening by the moment. After she found them and they fell into danger time and again, Li Tianxing would often leap out and seize control of her body. The devil seed is growing stronger and stronger. Old woman Sai will be replaced by Li Tianxing sooner rather than later. The shifting space around them was like a god casting dice. Each face of the die represented a divine restriction, and they were trapped inside that die. Whichever face the die landed on, the divine restriction upon it would awaken. Yet this was no six-faced die, but one with 108 faces. Now it landed upon the face of the stars. The ground beneath their feet vanished, and their surroundings became an endless sea of starlight. There was nothing above them, and no earth below them. Those flickering stars were not true stars, but mirrors. All at once, their lights gathered together, and with a low hum, shone upon the trio. Butcher bellowed and swung, "Every cloud has a silver lining," slashing at that horrifying divine radiance. The divine light split in two and brushed past them, annihilating everything that was not directly behind Butcher. Granny C immediately shouted, "Deaf! Deaf! Come here quickly!" On the far side of the starry void, Deaf wielded his brush, drawing as he contended with the stars. Blind said, "Deaf can't hear your voice." Before Blind could finish, Deaf tried to fly over. A beam of starlight struck him without warning, blasting him away and sending him vanishing to some unknown place. "Butcher, rest a while. It's my turn." Li Tianxing's voice rang from Granny C's mouth. Butcher at once retreated, and Granny Sai advanced. That body circulated the great educational heavenly devil scriptures and carefully observed the changes in the space around them. They were not the only ones trapped within this layered space. Deaf, Old Ma, and Cripple were also trapped. Yet they were caught on different faces of the die, making it hard for them to regroup. When Granny Sai arrived and saw Blind and the others imprisoned within, she tried to unravel this restriction. Yet to her surprise, she was pulled in as well. Later, Deaf found his way here and also tried to solve this restriction, only to be swept inside too. This space restriction holds 108 divine restrictions, but the central administration that runs these formations is not within these 108 faces. Blind rose to his feet, and the eyes of his god mind pierced like polished mirrors as he swept his gaze in every direction. Our bodies are inside a god's die. Old Ma and Cripple are on another face, yet we still land on the same face at times. Deaf also enters this plane once in a while, which means this space restriction has operated for far too long, and there is already slight deviation in its mathematical calculation. He performed calculations in his mind, and his brows suddenly lifted. The god who laid this space restriction only calculated to the Shun-Shi decimal fraction. He didn't calculate to the smallest decimal. Once this divine restriction operates for a period of time, it will crumble on its own. By then, the space restriction had shifted into a volcano, its divine flames like dragons. Thunder and lightning boomed as Granny Sai fought with all she had to withstand them, while Li Tianxing spoke through her mouth. How much longer until this restriction crumbles by itself? Blind calculated briefly and said, 24,000 years. Shut up, blind! Butcher shouted, wanting nothing more than to cleave him in two with a knife. At that moment, a voice sounded from outside. Brat, your elders are trapped inside. There are 6 of them. Inside the space restriction, all were stunned and looked outward, yet they could see nothing. Blind grew extremely tense and barked sternly. Muer, don't come in. You don't have the power to withstand the divine restrictions. Chinmu's voice sounded from outside. Devil King, do you have a way to save them? This space restriction uses a secret technique of space matrix to layer 109 spaces, separating them into 108 sections. It may look like there are 108, but in truth there are 109. That voice continued. However, the god who laid down this secret technique of space matrix should have taken the easy path and failed to calculate all the way to the smallest possible decimal, which is why flaws remain. This secret technique will crumble on its own after operating for 24,000 years. But if one can find the 109th space, it shouldn't be hard to solve this. Give me a moment to calculate. Inside the space restriction, Granny C, Butcher, and the rest exchanged looks. The person beside Chinmu is truly remarkable to discern the marvel of this restriction at a glance. He's far more reliable than blind. After some time, that voice spoke again. Do you have some treasure you don't use? Something quite solid, so I can throw it into the 109th space. If a solid thing entered that place, it would be like an extra object appearing in operating gears, automatically jamming them. The formation would then be naturally solved. Chinmu then said, I picked this up in Roland's Golden Palace. Is it useful? This treasure isn't bad. For you to pick up this kind of treasure, you sure are lucky. No wonder I couldn't trick you. Your luck is heaven-defying, so it's not that I'm incapable. Just as he said that, Granny Sai and the others saw a luminous pearl fly before them. That pearl grew larger and larger until it seemed to contain mountains and rivers within. It was as though a whole world resided inside, with majestic ranges and endless waterfalls. The luminous pearl streaked across the horizon, becoming an enormous object. The circular sky held mountains and rivers that vanished in the next instant. Be careful. When the restriction is unraveled, it will be a little rough, the voice outside warned. As soon as he finished speaking, violent tremors surged from the depths of space. Layer after layer crumbled, while land, water, fire, and wind poured out in a frenzy, sweeping across all things. The power of the divine restrictions in each layer cracked, and terrifying energy spewed in every direction. Those within the restriction immediately roused their vital chi and unleashed their strongest defensive methods to contend against this violent force. Fortunately, this energy was not aimed at them, but merely erupted in all directions, so they could still endure it. Had it been directed at them, they would certainly have been shattered into pieces. Chinmu stood before a portion of forest that had suddenly turned to ash. The surging shockwave swept in all directions, grinding every tree into fine powder. Thud, 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 thud. 4 figures appeared from nowhere and slammed heavily into the ground, carving pits beneath them. Chinmu shook his head. So old, yet still can't spare people from worry. Cripple, move away. Deaf's voice rang from above as this elder fell headfirst from the sky. Below him, Cripple grunted as Deaf crashed down onto him. In midair, a Buddha's radiance blazed as a huge Buddha descended. A golden spring gushed from the earth, and within it, a lotus blossomed. The huge Buddha lowered his legs and stepped onto the lotus. The lotus and golden spring vanished, and the great Buddha dispersed, turning into an elder in green. He was none other than Old Ma, and though his clothes were somewhat tattered, he looked far better than the others. Everyone rose and looked at one another. They had truly survived and emerged from that space. Though all bore grievous injuries, none were fatal. All lifted their heads to see Chinmu standing in the distance. The youth of disabled elderly village kept shaking his head in disdain at how they had become even more unreliable with age. Before Chinmu stood a proud iron lump. With 8 arms planted at his waist, he looked like a lantern, his expression plainly expecting their worship. Behind Chinmu was a dragon Qilin as fat as a pig. He seemed not to have fully awakened from sleep, sluggish and uninterested in anything. Muer, why are you here? Granny C was astonished as she hurried forward to size Chinmu up. After examining him, she grumbled, "How dare you charge into such a dangerous place? You've got too much guts. Are you hurt anywhere?" "Granny, stay farther away from him." Blind stepped forward, a little nervous as he looked at Chinmu. Granny C is somewhat unable to handle the devil seed in her Dao heart. Sometimes she is male, sometimes female, and we don't know when she'll be taken over by Li Qianxing. Be careful of her laying her hands on you. From Granny C's mouth came an aged voice thick with devilish nature. "Don't worry, he is the current cult master of our sacred cult. As the previous cult master, I naturally won't lay my hands on him." In the next instant, Granny C's voice turned female again. "Li Qianxing, go back." Cripple stepped forward and sized up Duqian Devil King, who stood with 8 arms on his waist. "Muir, your iron lump sure is useful. What's his name again?" Old Ma said, "Duqian Devil King." Butcher came up to look and asked doubtfully, "Where did you get him? Last I saw you, you didn't have this iron fellow. He's quite useful." "So ugly," Def said. Duqian Devil King flew into a rage and wanted to explode, but Chinmu quickly cut in. "This is Duqian Devil King, the supreme ruler of Duqian world, whom I invited to save all of you. He has extremely high attainments in divine restrictions, so he can definitely bring us to safety." Duqian Devil King immediately became pleased. This brat still knows what to say. Even though his intentions are a little bad, his methods a little cruel, his heart a little too cautious. "Where's Village Chief?" Chinmu asked. "As well as Grandpa Apothecary and Grandpa Mute, did they reach this place?" Blind shook his head. "My eyesight is good, and I saw traces of Apothecary and Village Chief, but I didn't see Mute." The others nodded in silence. Granny C said, "Apothecary and Village Chief should have faced no problem since they are together, and Patriarch and Elder of Discipline are also with them. However, we haven't seen Mute, and this fellow never says a word. Whatever he plans to do, he won't share it with us. If he's alone, I reckon he'd find it hard to hold on. Muir, this place is so dangerous, yet you still forced your way here. You've suffered." Chinmu immediately flared with anger. "All of you wandered off instead of coming back home for New Year's. If you got lost, what could I do but come and find you? Devil King, you shall lead the way, and you all stop wandering off." NN. The bunch of elderly nodded in a flurry. Translator Ninetails, editor Dark Gem. Duqian Devil King lifted his chin high, and with a steady stride, he brought the elders of Disabled Elderly Village, old, weak, sick, and maimed, forward before him. There are so many able-bodied people in the village, so why is it called Disabled Elderly Village? He asked himself in silence. Disabled Elderly Village of today no longer matched its name. It even had young folk like Granny C and Chinmu within it, so even the word elderly itself invited debate. Old Ma, Butcher, and Cripple were already hale and whole, while Granny C, though she might still be crippled within her heart, had a body that was perfectly fine. The only ones still missing pieces of their bodies were Blind, Apothecary, Village Chief, Mute, and Deaf. Yet Duqian Devil King did not know that to the people of Disabled Elderly Village, a crippled body was not truly a disability. Their real disabilities were carved into their hearts. Village Chief was worn out from being unable to fulfill his duty, leaving him spirit broken. Even if he were whole and strong, he still would not step out of the great ruins. Apothecary had sliced his own face away under the crushing pressure of relationship debts. Even if he regained the looks of his golden years, he still would not dare go out and face others. The reason Blind was down was not because he had lost his sight. And though Old Ma had regained both hands, he still could not gather himself after the deaths of his wife and child. He remained unable to forgive himself. Granny Si's heart devil, Cripple's past, Deaf's homeland, Mute's mysterious past, and the reason Butcher once raised his knives toward heaven, each was a shackle binding them tight. The disability in the heart was their true disability. They had sunk into a sorrowful past and could not break free. This was the root of Disabled Elderly Village. If not for the child they had raised running out beyond the village, the people of Disabled Elderly Village would have stayed quietly where they were, waiting for death, digging a pit to bury themselves. Chinmu's arrival had gradually brought life back to their hearts, but even he could not make them walk out of the past that had left them crippled. The true disability is when both the body and the heart are disabled. Because of this, these people could only rely on themselves to walk out. Duchian Devil King truly was a devil king from another world. He knew so much that even Blind was endlessly impressed by his knowledge and the solidity of his details. Duchian Devil King had thoroughly convinced him with his attainments in algebra. They reached the border of the forest, near its end. It was only 2 miles or so more, yet Duchian Devil King had to spend half a day just to cross those 2 miles. It's New Year's Eve. Granny C suddenly said. Old Ma shook his head. It's not considered New Year's until all the people of the village are present. Butcher's voice rang out like a great bell. We must find village chief, mute, and apothecary. See their bodies. Even if they're dead, we'll drag them back for New Year's. There was no path ahead anymore, only the crumbling, carefree village. At the end of the forest, there was no more land, only a clean cross-section. Standing at the cliff's edge, Chin-Mu lowered his gaze and saw another forest below. He could not help but be stunned. Another forest? He exclaimed in astonishment. This forest grows on the cliff, so how are the trees perpendicular to the ground? Duchian Devil King leapt off the cliff and landed with a heavy thump, standing steadily on the side. His body was perpendicular to Chin-Mu's as he paced back and forth. The seal here is far more complicated than I thought. It's formed by a cube that seals Carefree Village within it, controlling the electromagnetic force of this place. You'll understand when you come over here and take a look. Chin-Mu cautiously extended one leg and suddenly felt an attracting force beneath his foot. When he set that foot down and lifted the other, he realized he was standing on the cliffside without the slightest discomfort. Not only that, from where he stood, it looked as though he were standing at the cliff's edge, while Granny C, Old Ma, and the others were standing on the cliffside. Only he and Duchian Devil King seemed to be standing on level ground. He turned his head to look around, slightly shaken. He saw that, on the opposite side, there was also a forest, standing perpendicular to the ground. Beyond that, in the sky in the other directions, there were forests as well. This scene was like countless pieces of land wrapping around Carefree Village to form a vast hollow ball. Yet judging from the lay of the land, it did not seem to be a simple hollow ball. It seemed instead to be pieced together by thousands of cubes of varying heights, with Carefree Village at the very center. Each cube was 1,000 miles of forest folded up, and each face of the cube was the obverse side. This kind of divine art was beyond anything he could imagine. Even an existence like Imperial Preceptor wouldn't have been able to imagine such a divine art could exist in this world, right? The electromagnetic force here has changed. Blind also walked over and felt that attracting force. This great divine art is no small matter if it can cover the entire Carefree Village. I'm afraid the only exit is the place we came from. Countless seals, all to prevent the people of Carefree Village from walking out. Granny C also walked over, raising her head to look at the debris of Carefree Village floating in silence. They were still some distance away, and she said, Village Chief and Patriarch possess remarkable abilities, so they should have gone in there, right? Duchian Devil King raised his head and walked back onto the path they had come from, then shook his head. There are many restrictions in the sky, and it would be hard to avoid them if one tried to fly over. I would need to calculate for some 30 to 50 years to find the safest path. If my true body were here, I could do it faster, but it would still take me 1 or 2 years. The god who left behind this seal is too strong, nothing you can handle. If anyone tried to fly into Carefree Village, they are most likely dead. He muttered. The entire Great Ruins is cursed, wrapped in a strange rule. It's truly hard to live in a world like this. So, Cult Master Chin, even if you invite me into this world, I won't come back again. This world is too twisted. Blind muttered, Village Chief is definitely alive. That old fellow never takes anything seriously, but once he does, he'll definitely manage it. Wait a minute. Don't you all think the shape of Carefree Village looks like a ship? Everyone lifted their heads to look. Carefree Village was unimaginably huge, and though it lay in ruins, they could still glimpse the glory and magnificence it once possessed. Farther away hung a sun that was about to sink into darkness, and yet, if one pieced together those shattered peaks, the enormous machinery fragments, and the broken city, its outline truly did resemble a colossal, majestic ship. An existence beyond conception. Compared to it, the sun and the moon ships were nothing. Carefree Village is a ship? Chin-Mu felt his mind could hardly bear it. Even though the sun in the sky was man-made, it was already enormous. If the city and mountains were combined into one, it would become even larger, surpassing the size of the sun and the moon ship by 1,000 times. Could such a gigantic ship exist in this world? Great observation, blind. Cripple's eyes lit up, and his breathing grew rapid as he pointed at the sun that was half swallowed by darkness. This sun should be the source of energy for this ship. It's a huge pill furnace, an unimaginably huge pill furnace. Granny C rolled her eyes at him. You can't carry it home. Duchian Devil King was also slightly shaken, murmuring under his breath, such a huge pill furnace. What was this ship used for? Why is it sealed here? Could it be... Ha! I must be thinking too much. He laughed roughly and did not speak another word. Old Ma said, ships are used to ferry passengers. They carry people to their destination. So this ship must have its own destination as well. Death, who had been silent, suddenly said, isn't it Carefree Village? Carefree Village is carefree, so why would it need a destination? Once it has a destination, it won't be Carefree Village anymore. If it's not Carefree Village, then what is its destination? Everyone looked into one another's eyes and said in unison, the true Carefree Village. Chin-Mu stared blankly. The elder's guess left him even more at a loss. True Carefree Village. Wasn't this place Carefree Village? However, what Old Ma and the others said made sense. Since such a huge ship had been constructed, it definitely had a destination, and that destination might truly be the true Carefree Village. Yet this ship had been discovered by the enemy that destroyed it and sealed it away. The survivors who were lucky enough to live tried to escape the seal, only to suffer disastrous casualties. After that, they spent countless years paving a road out. The devils in the darkness were also searching for Carefree Village, even believing this was Carefree Village, but this was only a ship heading toward Carefree Village. If Carefree Village is not here, then where is the true Carefree Village? Chin-Mu was at a loss. Where exactly is my hometown? Did any of my clansmen survive? His mind was in a tangle, and just then a silver light flashed across the sky. A silver boat flew out from the city, and on that silver boat stood Mute, holding a wooden chest. On the boat were also two white-haired elders, a faceless man and a youth. Mute controlled the silver boat, weaving through the air with nimble precision as he avoided the divine restrictions in the sky. Dutian Devil King was dumbfounded. The route the silver boat was taking was the safest path, one that would have taken him dozens of years to calculate. This silver boat, carrying its people, darted back and forth among the divine restrictions, like a clever fish slipping through every current, turning in all directions to avoid every kind of danger. After some time, the silver boat descended from the sky and landed before the group. Apothecary carried village chief out and stepped down from the boat, while the young patriarch shook his head. Why do you have to carry him? He can clearly fly by himself. Apothecary was stunned, then set village chief upright on the ground with a smile. I'm already used to it. Chin-Mu and the others immediately hurried forward, and Mute opened the wooden chest. The silver boat melted away, turning into silver pellets that tinkled as they fell into the wooden chest. Mute closed the lid deftly and picked up the chest. When he saw everyone coming over, he broke into a grin and waved his hand. Ah! Everyone rushed up and surrounded the newcomers. Questions spilling out from all sides, especially toward Mute. How did he know the safe route that even the supremely knowledgeable Duchian Devil King would need dozens of years to calculate? What exactly did they see when they entered the city in the sky? Was that place Carefree Village or not? Were there any survivors? Everyone was about to speak when village chief floated over and smiled at Chin-Mu. Mu'er, let me tell you a piece of good news. We have finally found your surname. Apothecary, hand the things to him. Apothecary poured many items from his pouch. There was a waist tag, bronze mirrors, a horizontally inscribed board, an imprint, a jade pendant, and some clothes. On every one of these items was a single word, Chin. Your surname is Chin. Apothecary smiled. There are many such items in that city, and village chief asked me to gather a few. Look at the handwriting on them. Doesn't it resemble the handwriting on your jade pendant? Chin-Mu's mind was blown apart. He turned to look back toward the small village they had passed on the way here. A flicker of hope reignited within his heart. Village Chief seemed to know what he was thinking and said, "That place may or may not be where you were born, and that family may or may not be your parents. There is still a chance that your parents are alive.